the world returns to you, not with a jolt, but as a soft, gray wash of light filtering through a paper screen. There is no call to arms, no frantic war drum, only the gentle, rhythmic drumming of rain on a tiled roof. It is a sound so constant, so peaceful, that it feels like the very pulse of the world. You are aware of the scent of damp earth from the small garden outside, mingled with the clean, grassy fragrance of the tatami mats that floor your entire world. The air is cool and still. You lie on a simple futon, a thin cotton mattress laid directly on the floor, and the blanket that covers you is a heavy, dark blue cotton, comforting in its weight. For a long moment, you simply exist in this state of quiet suspension, listening to the rain, feeling the air, a single, calm note in the vast, silent symphony of a world at peace. There is no hurry. Here, day is a meticulously drawn map, and there is no danger of getting lost. You probably won't make it through this thrilling day of administrative duties, and that is perfectly all right. The journey, as they say, is the thing. Before we proceed, if this quiet corner of history is a place you enjoy, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It is a small, silent gesture that lets us know you are out there listening. We would also love to know where in the world you are and what time it is for you. Leave a comment with your location and the hour, and we can all feel a bit more connected in our shared journey towards rest. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. You rise from the futon, your movements slow and deliberate, dictated by a lifetime of ritual. Your morning routine has all the spontaneous excitement of a well-rehearsed play, which, after 200 years of peace under the Tokugawa shogunate, is essentially what your life has become. You fold your bedding with precise, practiced motions and store it in a wooden closet, returning the room to its stark, empty beauty. The floor is a canvas of woven straw mats. The walls are sliding paper screens, or sheiji, that glow with a soft, diffused light from outside. This is your home, a modest buke yashiki, samurai residence in a quiet quarter of the sprawling city of Edo. Your rank is not high, but it is respectable. You are a samurai, and in this rigid, ordered world, that is everything. This is the great historical fact of your existence. Society is a pyramid, and you are at its peak, the Shinakashiko. The 4 divisions of society dictate every interaction. Below you are the farmers who grow the rice, then the artisans who craft the goods, and at the very bottom, the merchants who trade them. You produce nothing, yet you rule all. It is a position of immense honor, and you often feel immense, suffocating pressure. Your role is not to create, but to govern, to maintain order, to be a moral exemplar. It is a noble and deeply tedious calling. You slide open a screen and look out at your garden. It is a small, perfect world of moss-covered stones, a single, twisted pine tree, and a stone lantern, all slick and dark with the morning rain. The beauty of it is in its restraint, its careful composition. It is a living painting, designed to be contemplated, to bring a sense of peace. You watch the single raindrop tremble on the end of a pine needle before falling into the dark, wet moss below. This is your morning meditation. It is serene, it is peaceful, and it is a universe away from the blood-soaked battlefields of your grandfather's stories. Historians of a later age will debate whether the samurai of this era felt trapped by this peaceful bureaucracy, or if they truly embraced their new role as society's administrators and moral exemplars. From where you stand, watching the rain, it feels like a bit of both. You are proud of your name, of your status, of the peace your class has secured. But there is a part of you, a deep, silent part. Tad feels like a perfectly crafted sword, locked in a beautiful scabbard. It's never to be drawn. You wash your face with cold water from a ceramic basin and begin to dress for the day. Your clothing is a series of complex layers, undergarments, silken kimono of a dark, sober color, and over it, the stiff, formal vest and trousers known as a kamishimo. It is the uniform of a samurai at work, a bureaucrat in the service of your local lord, your daimyo. Getting dressed is not a simple act, but a ritual, each fold and knot tied just so. By your side, resting on a polished wooden stand, are your 2 swords, the daishu, the long katana, and the shorter wakizashi. You check them, not for battle readiness, but as a matter of habit, of ceremony. You run a soft cloth along their lacquered sheets. They are your soul, the ancient symbol of your status. Okay? They are also for all practical purposes, the most elegant and expensive paperweights in the city of Edo. To draw them in anger in this peaceful city would mean disgrace, ruin, and likely a quiet order to commit ritual suicide. Their power now lies in the fact that they are never, ever used. Breakfast is, as always, the model of aesthetic and nutritional perfection. A bowl of gleaming white steamed rice, a small piece of grilled, salted fish, some pickled radish with a sharp, clean taste, and a bowl of miso soup whose savory steam warms your face. It is exquisitely balanced and profoundly unexciting. You eat in silence, using chopsticks with a grace that is as ingrained as breathing. The meal is not for pleasure. It is for sustenance. It is another part of the day's perfect, predictable machinery. And as you eat, you think of the day ahead. You will walk to the castle administrative offices. You will sit at a low desk. You will inspect rice production ledgers from rural villages. You will check tax accounts. You will stamp documents with your personal seal. This is the reality of the way of the warrior in an age without war. It is an obscure cultural tidbit that the code of Bushido, Tia, the romanticized way of the warrior, was truly formalized and written down during this long peace. It was a philosophy created for a class of men who needed a moral compass for a life that no longer involved constant warfare. A key, it became a guide to enduring your duty, to finding honor and patience, and to serving your Lord with a pen rather than a sword. A noble idea. But some days, staring at endless columns of figures, you find it is a much harder path to follow than a charge into enemy spears would ever have been. You slide open the outer gate of your home, the wood moving smoothly in its track, and step out into the narrow, quiet street. The rain has softened to a fine, persistent mist that hangs in the air and slicks the gray cobblestones. The world of your samurai quarter is a maze of earthen walls topped with dark tiles, presenting a uniform, impenetrable face to the world. Privacy is paramount. You see no homes, only the imposing entrances to the homes of others. The only sounds are your own soft footsteps on the wet stones, the distant, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer from the artisan's district, and the mournful cry of a tofu seller making his morning rounds. Your walk to work is a study in navigating unspoken rules. You nod to a superior from a neighboring residence with just the right degree of deference. You ignore an artisan hurrying past with polite disinterest, and you cross the street to avoid a merchant, lest his blatant success at actually making money somehow rub off on you. Each interaction, or lack thereof, is a reinforcement of your place in the great, unmoving pyramid of society. As you walk, the two swords at your hip are a constant presence. The Daishu, this potent symbol of your class, is more of a burden than a comfort on these daily walks. This is a callback to their presence in your home. They are not tools for a fight, but emblems of a status you must constantly perform. You adjust them not for a faster draw, but to keep the long scabbard of the katana from bumping awkwardly against a wall or a passing commoner, to cause a scene, to have your sword accidentally trip a farmer or scrape a merchant stall would be a source of deep embarrassment. Thus, your primary martial art on these morning commutes is the subtle, delicate dance of not letting your weapons, the very soul of the warrior, get in your way. How many samurai truly lived comfortably on their hereditary stipends of rice, versus how many were trapped in a cycle of genteel poverty, struggling to maintain the expensive appearances required by their rank, is a complex economic question that the official records tend to gloss over. For you, the stipend is adequate, but not lavish. Your kimono is silk, but not the finest. Your house is respectable, but not large. You exist in a state of carefully managed, honorable sufficiency. The streets gradually become more crowded as you approach the castle grounds. You see more samurai now, hundreds of them, all dressed in the same formal kamishimo, all heading in the same direction. They are the gears and levers of the administration, the human machinery that runs this domain. This vast congregation of your class here in Edo is a result of the shogunate's most brilliant policy of control. The major historical fact that defines the political landscape, Senkin-Katai, or alternate attendance. Every one of the great lords, the daimyo, is required by law to spend alternating years here in the capital, 8, and in their own domain, hundreds of miles away. Crucially, their wives and heirs must reside in Edo permanently. They are, in the politest possible terms, hostages. This system ensures no lord can gather enough wealth, power, or men in his home province to ever contemplate a rebellion. Keeps the daimyo poor from the expense of maintaining 2 residences and making the lavish annual procession to and from Edo. And it keeps them loyal. It has also turned Edo into the largest city in the world, a bustling metropolis teeming with samurai from every corner of Japan, all here to serve their lords during their mandatory stay. Ahead, the great stone walls and imposing gates of the castle rise out of the mist. The castle looms ahead, its white plastered keep and intricate gatehouses designed centuries ago to withstand a siege. Today, their primary function is to intimidate junior clerks and impress visiting dignitaries. It's far more civilized form of warfare. As you near the main gate, you see a man leaning against a stone wall, trying to stay dry under the slight overhang of a guard tower. He wears the 2 swords of a samurai, but his kimono is faded and worn, his hair slightly unkempt. He is a ronin, a masterless samurai, an obscure but common feature of this peaceful world. Perhaps his lord fell out of favor with the shogun, or perhaps his domain was abolished for failing to produce a male heir. For whatever reason, this man, trained only for battle and loyalty, has lost both his master and his taipand. He is adrift. He is a walking contradiction, a warrior with no war, a master of a craft that the world no longer needs. Your eyes meet for a fraction of a second. You see in his a flicker of resentment, of pride, of deep, weary hunger. He sees in yours what? Pity, superiority. You feel a brief flash of sympathy, followed by the much more practical feeling of relief that, isn't you? You quickly look away and continue toward the gate, leaving the ghost of a bygone era to its lonely vigil in the rain. You pass through the castle gate, bowing to the guards, and enter the sprawling complex of administrative buildings within the outer walls. These are simple, elegant wooden structures, long and low, surrounding gravel courtyards raked into perfect, wave-like patterns. This is your battlefield. This is where your day's work will be done. You slide open the paper screen to your assigned office, a large, quiet room where a dozen other clerks like you are already kneeling at their low, lacquered desks. You make your way to your spot, perform a series of precise, formal bows to your colleagues and your section supervisor, and then you kneel on your cushion. You take out your tools for the day, a brush, an inkstone, an inkstick, and a water dropper. The day's ledgers are already waiting for you in a neat stack. The smell of ink and paper fills the air. The rain continues its soft, steady drumming on the roof. Your truly mundane job is about to begin. The day's work begins not with a command, but with a shared, unspoken understanding. You and the other clerks kneel before your desks in the quiet, orderly room. The air is cool and still, smelling of old wood, paper, and the faint, clean scent of the ink you are about to prepare. The only sounds in the room are the rustle of paper, the soft click of abacus beads from a far corner, and the occasional, deeply profound sigh from a colleague who is likely contemplating the fleeting nature of existence versus the eternal nature of this particular tax report. Your first task is always the same. You make your ink. You take the small ceramic water dropper and let a few drops of clear, cold water fall onto the flat surface of your inkstone, a smooth, dark slate. Then you take your ink stick, a hard, dry cake of compressed pine soot and binder, and you begin to grind it in the water, moving it in a slow, circular motion, This is a meditative act, a quiet ritual to center the mind before the day's labor. The friction slowly turns the water into a thick, fragrant, lustrous black ink. The quality of your work today will depend on the quality of this ink. It is a small island of craft in a sea of bureaucracy with your ink prepared. You dip the tip of your brush, a fine point of weasel hair set in a bamboo handle, and turn to the first ledger. The paper is washi, a type of traditional Japanese paper that is soft yet strong, with a satisfying texture beneath your brush. The ledger is a record of the rice harvest from a small, remote village in your lord's domain. This is the great foundational fact of your entire society. It runs on rice. The wealth of a daimyo is not measured in gold or silver, but in the amount of rice his lands produce. Your own stipend as a samurai is paid not in coin, but in kokwa, unit of rice, theoretically enough to feed one man for 1 year. Every transaction, every tax, every salary is calculated in terms of this single vital grain. Therefore, your job, this seemingly dull task of auditing rice ledgers, is of paramount importance. You are the guardian of your lord's wealth, the accountant of the currency of power. Your grandfather felled men with his katana. You fell clerical errors with a sharp eye and a dab of red ink. You read the columns of elegant vertical script. The characters are a report from the village headman, detailing the yield of each paddy field, the amount set aside for the village's own consumption, and the amount due to your lord as tax. Your job is to ensure the numbers match. You check the headman's calculations, your fingers moving deftly over the beads of your own small abacus, a sorobin. The numbers flow, a silent river of data. Field A, yield 3 koku. Field B, yield 2.5 koku. Field C. It is a litany of harvests, a prayer book of agriculture. To what extent the average samurai was a master of calligraphy and mathematics, versus how many were simply rubber stamping the work of more skilled, lower ranking clerks, is a question hidden in the margins of these very ledgers, but you take a quiet pride in your skill. You can spot an anomaly, a miscalculation, a number that feels wrong. You are a detective of arithmetic. Your mind, which has no battles to plan or duels to fight, focuses all of its sharp, disciplined energy on this. For hours, you work in near total silence. The world shrinks to the columns of black characters on the white page. You forget the rain outside. You forget the ache in your knees from kneeling. You forget the swords at your side. There is only the ledger. Then you find it. A small discrepancy. A single column of figures that does not add up correctly. Dead man has reported the total tax due, but his own figures for the individual fields sum to a slightly lower number. It is a small error, likely an honest mistake in his calculations, but it is an error nonetheless. A tiny tear in the perfect fabric of the bureaucracy. You take out a separate sheet of paper and, with your brush, you carefully recalculate the figures yourself, your own calligraphy, clean and precise. You confirm the mistake. Your heart beats a little faster. It is the closest thing to excitement you will feel all day. You make a neat notation in red ink in the margin of the ledger, explaining the discrepancy and the correct total. You do not feel anger or suspicion towards the headman, only a quiet satisfaction at having restored order. You have done your duty. Once your review of the ledger is complete, you take out the final, most important tool on your desk, your hanko. This is your personal seal, an obscure but vital piece of daily life. It is a small cylinder of ivory, its end carved with the characters of your family name in a unique, stylized script. Instead of signing your name, you use this stamp for all official business. It is your mark of authority, your legally binding signature. You open a small porcelain container that holds a thick red paste made of silk and cinnabar. You press the hanko firmly into the paste. then onto the designated spot on the ledger's cover. You press your hanko onto the page, leaving a perfect circle of vermilion. This small, neat stamp is the culmination of your day's labor, the bureaucratic equivalent of a heroic war cry. It is, you must admit, slightly less dramatic. You have audited the ledger. You have found and corrected the error. You have officially approved the document. Okay? You set it aside on the finished pile and pick up the next ledger. It is a record of the rice harvest from another small, remote village in your lord's domain. The day is not yet half over. The afternoon wears on. The initial meditative focus you achieved through the grinding of the ink has long since evaporated, leaving behind the hard, dry residue of pure monotony. You are now on your third ledger of the day. It is from a village called Matsu no Shida, or Under the Pines. The name conjures a pleasant image of a peaceful, rustic place, but the columns of figures are identical in their structure to the last. The names of the fields are different, the numbers vary slightly, but the pattern is the same. The work has become purely mechanical. Your brush forms the characters for rice, tax, and total without any conscious thought. You stare at a column of numbers until they lose all meaning, transforming from a tax record into a series of abstract black squiggles. This, you suspect, is what true enlightenment feels like, and it is terribly overrated. Your mind, no longer tethered to the task, begins to drift. It floats away from the silent, disciplined world of the castle and wanders into the noisy, colorful streets of Edo that you so carefully avoid. You think of the merchants. This is the great paradox of your time, a major historical fact that quietly undermines the perfect social pyramid you inhabit. You are the samurai, the ruling class, the pinnacle of the social order. The merchants are at the very bottom, officially considered parasites who produce nothing, only profiting from the labor of others. Yet, in this long era of peace, it is the merchants who are thriving, while you are paid in rice, a currency that is honorable but fixed and often insufficient. They deal in actual coin. They have accumulated vast amounts of real, tangible wealth. You might pass a rice merchant on the street whose kimono is made of finer silk than your lord's. Technically, you could cut him down for this perceived insolence and the law would be on your side. In reality, you know that your lord probably owes that same merchant a staggering amount of money, a debt secured against future rice harvests. The entire samurai class, from the great daimyo down to humble clerks like you, is increasingly indebted to the very class it professes to despise. How much genuine contempt the samurai held for this rising merchant class, versus how much was a facade hiding deep-seated envy, is a subtle, emotional truth that is difficult to excavate from official proclamations of honor. Your mind drifts further to the world that this merchant wealth has built, the Yukio, the floating world. It is the world of pleasure, of theaters, of tea houses, of beautiful courtesans in the Yoshiwara district. It is a world you know of only through whispers and, more vividly, through ukiyo-e. These pictures of the floating world are in obscure but explosive art form woodblock prints that are cheap enough for a commoner to afford. You have seen them in a shop window once, a burst of scandalous color in life. They depict famous kabuki actors in dramatic poses, their faces painted in stark white and red, their kimonos impossibly lavish. They show beautiful women with elaborate hairstyles strolling under blossoming cherry trees. They are snapshots of a life dedicated to beauty, entertainment, and fleeting pleasure. A life utterly alien to your own, which is dedicated to duty, restraint, and the careful preservation of a static honor. You look down at your own stiff, formal kamishimo, a callback to the sober uniform you put on this morning. Its dark, plain colors are a symbol of your righteous, disciplined station. It is honorable, It is respectable compared to the imagined, vibrant silks of the floating world. It is profoundly dull. A soft click of abacus beads from a nearby desk pulls you back to reality. You realize you have been staring at the same line of the ledger for several minutes. You shake your head slightly, a small, private gesture of self-admonishment. Such daydreams are a failure of discipline. They are a distraction from your duty. Your mind wanders to a kabuki play you heard some artisans buzzing about, a dramatic tale of a ghostly revenge. You would never be caught dead attending such a common, vulgar spectacle. Of course, your station forbids it. Cool, but you would be very interested in hearing a detailed, second-hand account of it. For purely academic reasons, you would tell yourself, to better understand the mindset of the lower classes you are tasked with governing. It is a thin but necessary justification. You dip your brush back into the inkstone. The ink has begun to dry, and you must add another drop of water, another moment of ritual to chase away the colorful ghosts of the floating world and return your focus to the honorable, monochrome reality of the Matsu no Shida village rice tax. Report. You have a job to do, okay? An endless, unchanging, and deeply, deeply boring job. The light filtering through the paper screens softens and turns a warm, dusty gold. The sun is beginning its descent, and a collective, unspoken shift occurs in the room. The pace of work, already glacial, slows even further. Brushes are cleaned with more care. Inkstones are wiped with a deliberate, final-seeming motion. You are all simply waiting. Finally, your supervisor, a stern, older samurai whose face looks like it was carved from a particularly disappointed piece of wood, claps his hands twice. The sound is sharp, clean, and echoes in the silent room. It is the most beautiful sound in the world, second only to the sound of the gate to this office sliding shut behind you. The workday is over. You and the other clerks perform a series of synchronized, formal bows to the supervisor and to each other, a silent acknowledgement of another day of duty fulfilled. Then, you meticulously clean your own desk. You wash the inkstone until it is spotless. Dry your brush and place it in its holder, and stack the ledgers you have completed. The process is the reverse of the morning's ritual. A careful packing away of the day's labor, leaving the office as pristine and orderly as you found it. You step out into the gravel courtyard of the council complex. The rain has stopped, and the air is fresh and cool. The walk home is quicker. The desire to escape a place of profound boredom is a more powerful motivator than the sense of duty that brought you here this morning. As you exit the main castle gates, you join a river of other samurai, all flowing back towards the various residences of their lords. The city of Edo is transforming around you. Lanterns are being lit outside tea houses and shops, their soft, yellow light glowing warmly in the deepening twilight. The sounds of the city are changing from the clang of work to the murmur of evening leisure. You hear the distant, enticing sound of a samisen being played, its melancholic notes drifting from the merchant's quarter, a world away from your own. You must hurry. This is a major, unyielding fact of life in this great city. It is a city of gates. At the hour of the rat, deep in the evening, the great wooden gates that separate the districts of the city are closed and locked. The samurai quarters are walled off from the artisans who are walled off from the merchants. It is a system designed for security and, more importantly, for social control. Keeps the classes physically separated, preventing unwanted mingling after dark. The closing of the gates is for security and order, a way to keep the city safe. It also serves as a helpful reminder that you should be at home contemplating your honor and not out enjoying yourself, which is a dreadful thought for the authorities. Whether a lone samurai might have slipped past a friendly guard after curfew for a secret rendezvous or a cup of sake, and what the real consequences would have been, is a story of quiet transgressions that official documents would never dare to record. For a man like you, The risk is unthinkable. You must be back in your own quarter before the gates are barred. As you walk along the moat, you see that the cherry trees lining the bank are in full, glorious bloom. Their pale, pink blossoms seem to glow in the twilight. If you think of the stories, you've heard of Yosakura, the obscure but popular tradition of nighttime cherry blossom viewing. You imagine commoners, merchants, and their families having parties under these very trees, spreading out mats, drinking sake, and composing poetry as the petals drift down like snow in the lantern light. It is a simple, beautiful, communal pleasure, a pleasure that feels as distant from your own life as the moon. Your own appreciation of the blossoms is a solitary, fleeting glance on your hurried walk home. There is no party, no sake, only the quiet ticking of the clock before the city shuts itself down, the weight of your swords at your hip. A familiar callback feels different now. After a day spent as a clerk, a man of paper and ink, their solid presence is a grounding reminder of who you are. The daydream of the floating world fades, replaced by the hard reality of steel and silk at your side. You are not a merchant. You are not an actor. You are a samurai. Your life is not one of pleasure, but of duty. This peace, this order, the very safety that allows merchants to grow rich and artisans to create beauty, is built upon the foundation of your class, upon the silent, watchful presence of men like you. The thought brings not joy, but a kind of grim, stabilizing pride. It is your burden and your honor. You reach the gate to your own residential quarter, just as the guards are preparing to close it. You give them a short nod, and they bow deeply in return. You step through, leaving the noise and the temptations of the city behind. You are back in the silent, walled-in world of the samurai. You are home. The house is silent, a pocket of deep calm in the sleeping city. The gates to the quarter are locked, sealing you in for the night. Your evening unfolds with the same quiet, predictable ritual as your morning. You change out of your stiff, formal kamishimo, the uniform of your public life, and into a simple, dark blue cotton kimono, or yukata. The freedom of the soft, comfortable fabric against your skin is a small, private luxury, a release from the rigid posture of the day. Dinner is a solitary affair, a mirror of breakfast, but with slightly different pickles. A small portion of rice, a sliver of grilled fish, a cup of weak tea. The culinary excitement of your life is measured in the subtle variations of salted vegetables. You eat slowly, your mind gradually shedding the day's accumulation of numbers and figures, the endless columns of the rice tax ledgers. With the meal finished and the dishes cleared, you do not unroll your futon for sleep. Not yet. Now, in the quiet heart of the night, comes the most important part of your day. It is the time when you are not a clerk, not a bureaucrat, but simply a samurai. You slide open the paper screens between two small rooms, creating a larger, open space. The floor is nothing but clean tatami mats. The air is still. You kneel in the center of the room, your posture perfect, your breathing slow and even. You are preparing to practice your art. This is the great historical fact of your peaceful era. The martial arts have been transformed. With no wars to fight, the lethal skills of the battlefield have been sublimated into meditative disciplines, ways to cultivate focus, spiritual refinement, and personal honor. Whether these disciplined arts were truly a way for the samurai to find inner peace and spiritual fulfillment, or simply a sophisticated method to combat the profound boredom of a life without clear purpose, is a question of inner motivation that history cannot definitively answer. For you, it is both. You take up your katana, the long sword that has been a silent companion all day. Now, it becomes the center of your universe. You practice Ido, the art of drawing the sword. It's not sparring. There is no opponent. The only opponent is your own imperfection, your own lack of focus. You practice the kata, the prescribed forms that have been passed down for generations. You begin. The first movement is a slow, controlled turn of the scabbard, or saya. Second is the grip on the hilt, your hand finding its familiar place. The third is to draw itself a single, fluid, and possibly fast motion. The blade leaves the scabbard with a sound like a soft sigh, a whisper of steel. You bring the blade up and around in a perfect, arching cut through the empty air, your body moving with an explosive grace that feels utterly disconnected from the stiff, kneeling clerk of the daytime. You practice the art of drawing the sword, a skill that would have been vital for your ancestors in a sudden ambush. For you, it is a form of moving meditation, a way to keep a lethal skill perfectly sharp for a battle that will never come. It is, in essence, the most deadly form of yoga ever conceived. After the cut, you hold the blade perfectly still, its polished, mirror-like surface reflecting the faint lantern light. You can see the hamon, the faint, wavy line along the cutting edge, a testament to the master smith who forged it generations ago. You then perform the symbolic cleaning of the blade, a flick of the wrist to shake off imagined blood. Finally, the most difficult and dangerous part of the kata, the noto, resheathing the blade. It must be done slowly, with absolute control, guiding the razor-sharp edge back into the narrow mouth of the scabbard without looking, without a single tremor. Your hand must be steady, your mind completely clear. To rush, to lose focus for even a second would be to slice your own hand to the bone. The blade slides home with a soft, satisfying click. The form is complete. You remain kneeling for a long time after the sword is sheathed, your mind in a state of Zanjian. This is an obscure but central concept to the martial arts. A is a lingering awareness, a continued state of relaxed concentration even after the action is finished. Your body is still, but your mind is awake, alert, connected to the space around you, to the weight of the sword in your lap, to the sound of your own breathing. It is the residue of deadly intent, transformed into a peaceful, meditative presence. This is the essence of your existence, a constant state of readiness in a world that never asks you to be ready. You repeat the kata again and again, dozens of times, until your muscles ache with a familiar fire and your mind is wiped clean of everything but the motion, the blade, the breath. Afterwards, you meticulously clean the blade with rice paper and a special oil, ensuring it remains pristine, free from the corrosive touch of the air. It is the best cared for, least used weapon in the entire city of Edo. It could slice through a silk scarf dropped upon its edge. But its most frequent victim is the dust motes in the air. Only then, with your duty to your art and your ancestors fulfilled, do you finally unroll your futon and prepare for a dreamless, honorable sleep. You wake to the same soft, gray light, the same gentle drumming of rain on the roof. Wait. The world is exactly as you left it when you fell into the deep, dreamless sleep of the physically and mentally exhausted. You perform the morning's rituals with the same ingrained precision as always, folding the futon, sliding open the screens to contemplate the wet garden, washing your face with cold water. The routine is a comfort, a solid, unchanging foundation in a world of quiet duties. You are halfway through your breakfast, the familiar taste of salted fish and pickled radish on your tongue, when a new sound breaks the morning's perfect stillness. A soft, hesitant knock at your outer gate. A knock at your gate in the morning is a rare event and therefore deeply suspicious. Unscheduled events are a tear in the fabric of a well-lorded life, and your first thought is not one of curiosity, but of mild annoyance. Your carefully constructed timeline for the day has already been disrupted. You place your chopsticks down neatly, rise, and walk to the jenkin, the sunken entryway of your home. You slide open the door to find a young retainer from the castle, kneeling on the damp ground outside, his head bowed low. He is soaked from the rain, but his posture is ramrod straight. He looks terrified of making a mistake, and you feel a moment of sympathy for him. You were once that terrified young man, convinced that bowing at the wrong angle would lead to immediate dishonor and possibly the forfeiture of your entire family's stipend. The etiquette for delivering and receiving messages is an obscure but essential part of your world, a complex dance of hierarchy and respect. He does not speak immediately, but holds out a small, lacquered tray. On it rests a single, folded letter tied with a purple silk cord. The color of the cord alone tells you it is an official summons from your direct superior, Lord Izumi. You kneel and accept the tray, bowing your head in return. You do not open the letter in front of the messenger. To do so would be unseemly. The transaction is silent, formal, and freighted with unspoken meaning. You exchange another series of bows, and the young man, his duty done, scurries away as quickly as his station allows. You close the door and return to the main room. Only now do you carefully untie the silk cord and unfold the thick, high-quality washi paper. The message is written in bold, clear calligraphy. It is a summons. You are to report, not to your usual drab accounting office, but to Lord Izumi's private quarters within the castle's inner sanctum. Immediately, the summons does not say what the task is, only that there is a task. This is how bureaucracy builds suspense. It is less about dramatic tension and more about the quiet dread of being assigned to a new, even more boring committee. This order is an invocation of the most powerful force in your life, the major historical fact that governs your every action, Giri. There is no simple translation for Giri. It is duty. It is social obligation. It is the profound, inescapable debt of gratitude you owe to your Lord, to your family, to your ancestors. Your Giri to Lord Izumi is absolute. His command is not a request to be considered, but a gravitational pull that you cannot resist. To fail in this duty, or to even question it, is to fail as a samurai, to lose your honor, which is to lose everything. How much of a samurai's absolute obedience was driven by a genuine, heartfelt sense of loyalty and Giri, and how much was driven by a pragmatic fear of the severe consequences of disobedience, is a matter of human psychology that lies beyond the reach of historical texts. For you, the distinction is meaningless. The duty is as much a part of you as your own bones. There is no thought of finishing your breakfast, a callback to the peaceful routine that has now been shattered. You move with a new sense of urgency, yet your actions remain precise. Quickly change into your finest kamishimo, the one reserved for important occasions. You ensure your swords are perfectly placed at your hip. You take one last look at your quiet, orderly home, and then you step back out into the rain. Your path to the castle today is different. You do not head for the outer administrative buildings, but for the heavily guarded gates that lead to the inner compound, where the daimyo and his highest-ranking retainers live and work. The guards recognize the insignia on your clothing and let you pass without question, though their eyes linger on you. A flicker of curiosity about why a mid-level accountant is being summoned to the heart of power. You navigate a new series of courtyards and corridors, your mind a whirl of quiet speculation. Have you made some grave error in your audits? Is your family being rewarded for some long-forgotten deed of your grandfather? Or, most likely, is there some tedious, complex financial puzzle that requires the attention of a specialist, and you have simply drawn the short straw? The suspense is a quiet, cold knot in your stomach. You feel none of the heroic excitement of your ancestors being called to war. Instead, you feel the low-grade anxiety of an employee being called into the head office for a meeting whose purpose has not been explained. You finally arrive at the entrance to Lord Izumi's quarters. You announce yourself to the guards, and after a short wait, you are ushered in. You kneel on the tatami mat outside his reception room. Place your hands on the floor before you and bow deeply, your forehead nearly touching the ground, waiting to be acknowledged. Your unexpected day has truly begun. A soft voice from within the room bids you enter. You perform another, deeper bow while still on your knees. Then rise and slide open the paper screen with practiced, silent grace. You enter the room, close the screen behind you, turn, and immediately sink back into a formal bow, your nose an inch from the tatami mat. In a position that is both deeply respectful and excellent for contemplating the intricate weaving pattern of the straw. You wait. The silence stretches. You can hear the soft whisper of rain from the garden in the sound of your own heart, a steady, muffled drum. After what feels like a small eternity, Lord Izumi speaks again. You may be at ease. It is a command, not a suggestion. Okay? You raise your head, but keep your posture low, your eyes respectfully downcast. The room is the very definition of refined, understated power. It is larger than any room in your own home, but it feels emptier. The tatami mats are fresh and new, their grassy scent sharp in the air. The walls are bare, save for a single hanging scroll in an alcove. The tokonoma scroll depicts a single, swift brushstroke that suggests a mountain peak emerging from mist. Below it, on a simple, dark, lacquered stand, sits a single flower arrangement. This is ikebana, the obscure but profound art of arranging flowers. It is not a boisterous bouquet, but a stark, minimalist composition, a single, arching branch of a blossoming cherry tree, a few dark green leaves, and a single white lily. The arrangement creates a perfect, asymmetrical balance of line, space, and color. It is beautiful, but it is a severe, disciplined beauty. It speaks of a mind that values precision, order, and finding meaning in restraint. Lord Izumi kneels on a silk cushion behind a low, black lacquer desk. He is a man in his 50s, slender and elegant, with a neatly trimmed mustache and eyes that are sharp and intelligent. He is not looking at you, but at a document on his desk. Lord Izumi does not look like a fearsome warrior who has seen battle. He looks like a man who has spent the last 30 years winning silent, brutal wars against poorly structured sentences and ambiguous legal clauses, which, of course, he has. Tito period. This great piece was built not just on military power, but on the major historical fact of law, Tita, and the individual domains like your own created vast, complex, and minutely detailed legal codes. These laws govern everything from the collection of taxes to the proper materials for a roof, from the settlement of inheritance disputes to the correct way to bow to a superior. The samurai class, in its new role, had become the lawyers, judges, and legal scholars of the nation. How much real autonomy a mid-level lord like Izumi had in creating domain policy, versus how much he was simply enforcing rigid directives sent down from the shogun's government in Edo, is a constant source of scholarly fascination. Finally, he looks up at you. "I have reviewed your work," he says, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Your audits of the western villages. Okay? Your calculations are precise. You found the error in the Matsu no Shida ledger. Okay? A minor thing, but it speaks of a meticulous mind." You bow your head again, murmuring a humble, self-deprecating reply. The callback to your diligent work is a surprise. You assumed no one of importance would ever notice such a small detail. "A situation has arisen, Lord," Izumi continues, "that requires such a mind. A dispute," it goes on to explain. "Two villages on the domain's northern border are arguing over the responsibility for maintaining a small wooden bridge on the road that connects them. The bridge has fallen into disrepair. One village claims the other should pay for the lumber. The other claims the first is responsible for providing the labor. The dispute has halted travel and is beginning to affect the transport of tax rice. It is, in short, a monumentally dull, an irritating problem that is causing a major headache for the domain government. The existing regulations are unclear on this specific point. Lord Izumi says, a flicker of annoyance crossing his otherwise placid features. The language is ambiguous. It has led to this conflict. Order must be restored. Clarity must be established. He pauses and looks at you directly. Therefore, you are relieved of your duties in the accounts office. Your new special assignment is to research all precedent on matters of public works, consult the legal codes, and then you will write a manual. Your mind stalls for a second. Manual, a detailed, step-by-step procedural guide, he clarifies, for the filing, approval, and execution of all future requests for the maintenance of roads and bridges. It must be clear, comprehensive, and leave no room for ambiguity. Your heart soars with the thrill of it all. You have been chosen to be the lead architect of a monument to tediousness. You have been promoted from auditing boredom to creating it from scratch. You bow so low, your forehead touches the mat. I am unworthy of such a great honor, you say, your voice perfectly sincere. I will not fail you. You are dismissed with a slight, almost imperceptible nod from Lord Izumi. The audience is over. You slide backward on your knees, bow until your forehead once again touches the tatami, and exit the room as gracefully and as silently as you entered. Outside, a different attendant is waiting for you, not to guide you back to the accounting office, but to lead you deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the castle's administrative wing. You are led to a small, windowless room in the deepest part of the complex, a place you never knew existed. Kendon slides open the heavy wooden door, gestures for you to enter, and then leaves, closing you in. It is, you realize, the place where old papers are sent to die. And now, apparently, it is your office. The room is small, but the ceiling is high. The air is thick with the dry, sweet, dusty scent of very old paper and dried ink. 3 of the 4 walls are covered, from floor to ceiling, with wooden shelves. And these shelves are crammed with a chaotic library of historical records. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands, of scrolls tied with faded silk cords, stacks of pouch-bound books, and lacquered wooden chests overflowing with loose documents. A single, low desk and a cushion sit in the center of the room, a small island, in a sea of forgotten words. A sliver of light from a high, barred opening near the ceiling provides the only natural illumination, cutting through the dusty air and landing on a single stack of scrolls on the desk. These, you presume, are your starting point. This is where your great work, your magnum opus of monotony, will be composed. This room is a testament to a major historical fact of the Tokugawa era. The administration was built on a mountain of paper. It's a government, both at the shogunal level and within each domain, was obsessed with precedent, regulation, and documentation. Every decision, every legal ruling, every land survey, every single tax receipt was meticulously recorded, copied, and, theoretically, filed away. This created vast archives, treasure troves of information that were essential for the smooth running of the state. The ability to navigate these archives, to find the correct precedent from 70 years ago that applied to a current problem, was a highly valued bureaucratic skill. You have just been tasked with a deep dive into this paper ocean, how these vast archives were truly organized, whether they follow a logical system known only to a few master archivists, or if they were largely chaotic piles of paper whose contents were a matter of luck and persistence, is a question that frustrates modern historians as much as it must have frustrated the clerks of the time. Looking around the room, you suspect the answer is the latter. Your task is to read through hundreds of years of legal decisions and reports on public works to create a single, perfect document. It feels less like a legal project and more like a punishment devised by a particularly cruel ghost of a long-dead librarian. You sit at the desk, take a deep breath, and pick up the first scroll. The silk tie is brittle, and you untie it with care. You unroll the scroll on your desk. The paper is yellowed with age, and the ink has faded to a brownish gray. It is a report from the early days of the shogunate, over 100 years ago, concerning a dispute over flood damage to a road. As you begin to read the elegant, spidery script, you are transported. The world of your office disappears, and you are standing on a muddy road, listening to two long-dead village headmen arguing about whose responsibility it is to dig a drainage ditch. You become engrossed. You work your way through the documents, encountering the obscure and varied history of your own craft, courtesy, long, scrolled hand scrolls, or kensubin, detailing the original land surveys of the domain. You find concertina style, folding books, Orion, containing Buddhist sutras that were apparently filed in the wrong section a century ago. Most of the records, however, are fukurotoji, pouch-bound books with a simple stitch, the common format for reports and ledgers. Some of the scrolls are so old they crumble at the touch. You are literally sifting through the dust of history, and it gets in your nose and makes you want to sneeze. You suppress the urge, as sneezing in such a hallowed, silent place would probably be considered an act of treason against the god of paperwork. Days turn into a week. You fall into a new routine. You arrive at your dusty sanctuary in the morning. You grind your ink, and you read. You read about collapsed bridges, impassable winter roads, disputes over irrigation channels, and petitions for new ferry boats. You read reports stamped with the Hanko seals of samurai who have been dead for 200 years, a callback to the seal you so proudly used just last week. You feel a strange connection to these men, your bureaucratic ancestors. They were not warriors, but they were the architects of this peace. They fought their battles with brushes and ink, creating the very order that you are now tasked to uphold. A quiet, grudging respect begins to grow in your heart. You are not just a clerk. You are a legal scholar, a historian of the mundane. You are not writing a simple manual. You are distilling centuries of practical wisdom into a single document. You are taking the chaotic, accumulated dust of history and giving it form, clarity, and purpose. The thought is still profoundly boring, but for the first time, it also feels profoundly important. The weeks bleed into one another, marked only by the delivery of fresh candles and the changing roster of mice who have become your closest colleagues. You have named the boldest one Kenji. He seems to agree with your assessment of a particular legal precedent from the Kayet era, or at least he doesn't argue. The initial feeling of being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of paper has been replaced by a deep, quiet immersion. You have not just been reading, you have been absorbing, synthesizing. The floor around your desk is now covered in your own neat stacks of notes, each one cross-reference to a particular scroll or ledger. You have begun to write. The manual, which started as a vague concept, is now taking physical form. You are not merely transcribing. You are creating. The brush and inkstone that were once tools of monotonous repetition are now instruments of your own intellectual craft. A callback to your former life that now seems a distant memory. You have become the realm's foremost expert on the proper gradient for a drainage ditch and the optimal thickness of a bridge plank. You suspect this knowledge will make you insufferably fascinating at your next poetry gathering, should you ever be invited to one. But as you delve deeper into the archives, you begin to realize that your task is more than just a technical exercise. It is a lesson in politics. You uncover a file detailing a particularly nasty dispute from 50 years prior. It's concerned a road that ran along the border between your lord's domain and a neighboring one. This is where you encountered the great, invisible fault line that runs through the entire political landscape. The distinction between the Fudai and the Tozama Daimyo. Your lord is a Fudai lord, His family were allies of the Tokugawa clan before they became the undisputed rulers of Japan. They are trusted, part of the inner circle, and often hold key administrative posts. The neighboring lord, however, is a Tozama, an outside lord. His clan was one of the great powers who only submitted to the Tokugawa after they had won the final decisive battle. The Tozama are powerful, wealthy, and forever held at arm's length, viewed with suspicion by the central government. The old dispute was on the surface about who should pay to resurface the road, but reading between the lines of the careful, diplomatic language, you see the real issue. It was a subtle test of power and jurisdiction, a political chess match played out through the medium of gravel and dirt. Your manual, you realize, must be more than a simple guide. It must be a fortress of words, a document so precise and legally sound that it not only resolves disputes between villages, but also subtly asserts your lord's authority against any potential encroachment from his powerful, untrusted neighbors. The boring task has suddenly acquired a faint, thrilling whisper of danger. To understand the border dispute, you must consult the maps of the era. You unroll a magnificent old Azu, a hand-drawn pictorial map of the northern provinces from 80 years ago. It is a work of art. The mountains are drawn as friendly-looking green mounds with soft white peaks, and the rivers are charming blue ribbons that snake through fields of gold. The map shows the locations of castles, the boundaries of domains, and even includes notes on the estimated rice yield of each major village. It is artistically beautiful and, from a purely cartographical standpoint, almost completely useless. The scale is inconsistent, the distances are distorted, and the road in question is little more than a wavering brown line. How much these official reports and maps reflected the underground reality versus how much they were curated to present a picture of order and productivity for the central government is a question that clouds every historical inquiry. You spend 2 full days comparing the beautiful, imprecise Izu with the dry, detailed written descriptions from land surveys of the same period. You are cross-referencing art with data, trying to find the historical truth in the gap between them. It is a slow, painstaking process of intellectual detective work. You are no longer just an accountant. You are a historian, a cartographer, a political analyst. You are the sole inhabitant of this forgotten world of paper, and you are its master. The silence of the archive is no longer oppressive. It is productive. It is the necessary condition for the deep thought your task requires. Finally, you find it, a small, overlooked annotation in a surveyor's log that clarifies a boundary marker by referencing a specific crooked pine tree near the waterfall. On the pictorial Izu, you find a charmingly rendered drawing of that very tree. The two pieces of information, one textual and one visual, click together like a key in a lock. The location of the boundary is now clear. The responsibility for the road, according to precedent, falls squarely within your lord's domain. It is a small victory, a tiny point of clarity in a sea of ancient ambiguity. No one else in the world knows this fact. No one else would have spent the time to uncover it. You take out a fresh sheet of paper and dip your brush in the ink. Begin to draft the first, crucial chapter of your manual. Chapter 1, on the proper demarcation of jurisdictional boundaries. The words flow from your brush, clear, precise, and unassailable. A full month passes. The city of Edo transitions from the damp chill of spring to the warm, heavy air of early summer. But in your windowless room, time is measured only by the height of the finished document stack and the diminishing length of your ink stick. The archive is no longer a foreign territory. It is your domain. The mice are your subjects, the scrolls, your silent counsel. You have completed the research phase. The great, chaotic ocean of the past has been charted, its currents mapped. Now, you are in the final, painstaking stage of creation, the composition of the final manuscript. Your low desk is the epicenter of a storm of organized paper, notes. Drafts, cross-references, and discarded sentences lie in neat piles around you. You are an author, and this manual is your first, and likely only, great work. You labor over every word, every character. Your goal is not just clarity, but a kind of severe, bureaucratic elegance. You are striving for the aesthetic ideal of Shibumiya's simple, unobtrusive, and subtle beauty. This obscure ideal is the height of taste. It is not about being flashy or ornate, but about a quiet, restrained quality that grows more profound with contemplation. Your prose must be shibui. Each regulation must be stated with the simple, unadorned force of a perfectly placed stone in a garden. There can be no room for poetic flourish and absolutely no room for ambiguity. Spend an entire morning debating which of two kanji characters, T's, both meaning official, but with infinitesimally different nuances, is the correct one to use in the section on submitting a budget proposal. You read a sentence you wrote describing the 5 acceptable types of gravel for a secondary road. It is, you believe, the single most boring and yet most perfect sentence ever composed in the Japanese language. This manual is a small but vital piece of legislation for your Han, your lord's domain. This is a major historical fact of your time. The nation is a patchwork of these semi-dependent domains, each one a miniature country with its own castle, its own laws, and its own complex bureaucracy, all existing under the watchful eye of the shogun in Edo. Your work will become a part of the legal code of your Han, a document that will, in theory, ensure order and fairness for generations to come. How effectively these beautifully written procedural manuals were actually implemented in remote villages, and how often they were simply ignored by headmen who preferred to do things the way they always had, is a story of the gap between administrative ideals and human reality. But here, in this room, the ideal is all that matters. You have spent so long kneeling in this dusty, windowless room that you think your legs might have fused into a single, ceremonial block of wood. You have also, you are fairly sure, forgotten what the sun feels like, but the work is nearing its end. The final draft is complete. Now, you must produce the official copy to be presented to Lord Izumi. You unroll a long, perfect scroll of the highest quality cream-colored washi paper. You meticulously grind a fresh batch of the blackest, most lustrous ink. This act, a callback to the beginning of your task, feels different now. It is no longer a prelude to monotonous labor, but to an act of final, lasting creation. With a steady hand, you begin to copy your manuscript onto the scroll, your brush moving with a liquid, confident grace. The characters flow onto the page, each one perfectly formed. A testament to decades of training. As you write, you pause and look at your right hand. You see the faint, dark stain of ink on the side of your middle finger, a permanent mark from the past month of constant writing. Beneath it, you can still feel the hard ridge of calluses on your palm from years of gripping a sword's hilt, a callback to your dormant warrior self. The ink over the callus, the scholar over the soldier. This single image seems to summarize your entire existence. You are a man trained for a world of steel, living in a world of paper. You are a warrior whose battles are fought with language, whose victories are measured in clarity, whose only trophy will be this scroll, its comprehensive guide to the maintenance of roads and bridges. Finally, it is done. The last character is written. The final sentence is complete. You roll the scroll tightly, tie it with the new, clean silk cord, and place it before you on the desk. It is finished. A feeling of profound, hollow relief washes over you, followed by a new and unfamiliar sensation, a quiet, sharp pang of anxiety. Your solitary work is over. Now, you must take your creation out of this dusty, silent room and present it to your lord. it must be judged. The thought of presenting this masterpiece of monotony to Lord Azumi is both terrifying and, in a strange way, exciting. You imagine him unrolling it, reading your perfect, boring sentences and nodding slowly, his face betraying no emotion, which from him constitutes a wild standing ovation. You take the scroll, rise on your stiff legs, and prepare to leave the archive for the first time in a month. You slide open the heavy door of the archive and step out into the corridor. The sunlight, slanting through a distant window at the end of the hall, is so bright it feels like a physical assault. You, like a creature of the deep, are momentarily stunned by this strange, glowing orb in the sky and must blink several times to adjust. After a month spent in the dusty twilight of your scroll-filled cave, the world seems impossibly vivid, loud, and busy. The air, which you last remember as cool and damp with spring rain, is now thick with the heavy, humid warmth of summer. You can hear the insistent, high-pitched chirping of cicadas, a sound you had completely forgotten existed. You clutch the finished scroll in your hand. It feels solid, real, a tangible anchor in this suddenly overwhelming sensory world. Your journey back to Lord Azumi's quarters is a walk through a half-forgotten land. You pass a group of samurai guards chatting by a gatehouse. You nod, your body remembering the proper etiquette. But you have forgotten the precise angle of bore required for their rank versus yours. After a month of talking only to mice, your social skills have atrophied into a state of polite confusion. They nod back, their eyes lingering for a moment on the formal scroll you carry, a clear sign that you are on official, important business. You walk through a manicured courtyard where gardeners are trimming an azalea bush into a perfect, rounded shape. You notice the sharp, green scent of the cut leaves, a smell so fresh and alive it is almost shocking. Everything seems new, vibrant, and slightly jarring. As you near the inner sanctum, you pass a quiet, covered veranda overlooking a small car pond. A man in a plain, dark kimono stands there, seemingly admiring the slow, lazy movements of the orange and white fish. He is unremarkable in every way, yet your internal alarms, honed by a lifetime of samurai caution, ring softly. He is too still, his gaze too comprehensive. He could be a simple poet, enjoying a moment of peace, or he could be a Matsuke, one of the shogun's infamous inspectors. This is a major, though rarely spoken of, fact of your life. The shogunate's power is maintained by a network of spies and informants. The Matsuke were the official censors, the secret police, tasked with watching for any hint of corruption, conspiracy, or breach of protocol among the samurai in Edo. Their presence ensured that everyone, even powerful lords, followed the rules. How much actual conspiracy the Matsuke uncovered versus how much their mere presence created a self-policing atmosphere of perpetual caution, it's impossible to quantify, but their psychological impact was undoubtedly immense. It's usually best to assume the latter and focus very intently on a nearby pebble as you walk past. You avert your eyes and continue on your way, your hand resting almost unconsciously on the hilt of your short sword. In an alcove along the corridor, you see a beautiful ceramic tea bowl displayed on a small stand. It is a simple, rustic piece, but it has a network of fine, golden lines running through it, the result of kintsugi. This is the obscure but beautiful art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. Its philosophy is not to hide the damage, but to highlight it, to honor the object's history and treat the repair as a beautiful part of its story. You stop for a moment, captivated. You think of the broken, ambiguous regulations you have spent the last month studying. Your manual, you realize, is a form of administrative kintsugi. You have not created a new law from nothing. You have taken the broken pieces of old precedents, the cracks in the system, and repaired them, binding them together with the golden lacquer of clarity and logic. to make the whole stronger and more beautiful in its own way. This thought gives you a renewed sense of confidence. You are not just a clerk who has completed a task. You are a craftsman who has performed a delicate, necessary repair on the structure of the domain. You are an artist of bureaucracy. You arrive at the entrance to Lord Izumi's quarters, the same place you knelt in apprehension a month ago. This time, however, you feel different. You are no longer a simple accountant summoned for an unknown reason. You are a scholar, an author, presenting the fruits of your labor. You carried the solution to his problem, neatly rolled and tied with a silk cord. The scroll in your hand, the physical product of your skill with a brush and ink, feels as potent and significant as any sword. You announce yourself to the guards, your voice clear and steady. You are ready to have your work, your monument to the mundane, be judged. You are granted entry for the second time in as many months. You find yourself kneeling on the pristine tatami mats before Lord Izumi. You perform the same deep, formal bows, but this time you feel a sense of ownership, of purpose. You are not here as a subordinate awaiting orders. You are here as an expert delivering a commissioned work. You place the carefully prepared scroll on the floor before you and, with both hands, slide it respectfully across the mat toward your lord's desk. "My lord," you say, your voice quiet but steady. As you commanded, the procedural guide is complete. He gives a single, sharp nod, a command for you to remain where you are. He picks up the scroll. The rustle of the silk cord as he unties it is impossibly loud in the still room. He unrolls the first section, his eyes immediately scanning the title and the opening chapter. You wait, your posture perfectly still, your hands resting on your thighs. The silence in the room is so absolute, you feel you could hear a cherry blossom petal land on a silk cushion. It is far more terrifying than any battlefield your ancestors ever faced. There, the enemy is clear, the objective simple. Here, you are being judged on your intellect, your prose, your understanding of 100 years of legal nuance. Your entire professional worth is contained in the elegant black characters on that scroll. Lord Izumi reads with an unnerving stillness, his expression a perfect, unreadable mask of neutrality. This is the way of things. A man of his station would never betray an emotion as common as surprise or overt approval. Your manual is built upon the single most important pillar of Tokugawa law, historical precedent. This major fact is the bedrock of the entire legal and administrative system. Kei ruling is considered just and proper, not because it is innovative or creative, but because it aligns with what has been done before. It's a correct answer to a new problem. It's almost always found in a solution to an old one. Your work is powerful precisely because it is not original. It is a carefully constructed fortress, each stone a previous case, each line of mortars a verified precedent. You have created nothing new. You have simply taken the scattered, chaotic wisdom of the past and given it a clear, unassailable, and logical form. Whether a low-ranking samurai who authored such an important document would receive any formal public credit, or if his work would be quietly absorbed and issued under his lord's name, is often a matter of the lord's personal character and the accepted protocols of the domain. You expect no public praise. The quiet approval of this one man in this one room is the only victory you seek. He reads on, his eyes moving with a steady, practiced rhythm down the vertical lines of your calligraphy. He pauses at the chapter on approved materials for bridge supports. Feel your breath. Is there a flaw in your reasoning regarding the use of cypress versus pine? Did you misinterpret the ruling from the Jinban era? The stakes are dizzyingly high. This is your great battle, fought not with steel, but with grammar and evidence. You notice his eyes linger on the section detailing the resolution of jurisdictional disputes. The very part born from your discovery in the archives about the crooked pine tree. He makes a soft, almost inaudible sound in his throat. A quiet grunt that could signify anything from approval to disdain. You realize that? In his own way, Lord Azumi has likely been practicing his own form of statecraft while you were buried in the archive. A wise administrator knows the importance of Nemawashi, that obscure but vital art of turning the roots. Before a major decision is formally announced, the groundwork is laid. Formal conversations are had. Consensus is quietly built. Potential opponents are placated. It ensures that when the formal proposal is made, it is accepted with harmony and without disruptive conflict. Lord Azumi has likely already sent word to the feuding villages, hinting that a new definitive ruling is forthcoming, preparing them to accept it. Your manual is not the beginning of the process. It is the final, formal, unarguable justification for a decision that, in all likelihood, has already been made. Finally, after what feels like several geological ages, he finishes. He slowly, carefully rolls the scroll closed, reties the silk cord, and places it neatly on his desk. He is silent for a long moment, looking not at you, but at the scroll itself, this new weapon in his administrative arsenal. He then turns his gaze to you. "This is adequate," he says, his voice flat, in the reserved, emotional language of a stoic samurai lord. "This is the equivalent of setting off fireworks and declaring a national holiday in your honor." A wave of profound relief, so intense it almost makes you lightheaded, washes through. You bow your head deeply. "You have my gratitude, my lord. It is the greatest honor of my life to have been of service." He nods again. "Your work in the archive is finished. A copy will be made and circulated to all district officials. The original will be placed in the permanent record. Report back to the accounts office tomorrow morning. You are dismissed. The audience is over. Your great mundane adventure has reached its successful conclusion. You exit Lord Azumi's quarters and step back into the world. It is evening now, and the oppressive heat of the day has given way to a pleasantly cool air. The paper lanterns hanging along the corridors have all been lit, their warm, gentle light creating pools of soft yellow in the gathering dusk. Your walk home is a journey through a world that is at once familiar and entirely new. The castle complex, the gravel courtyards, the imposing gates, they are the same as they were a month ago, but you are not. You walk with a straight back, not out of a sense of rigid duty, but from a new, quiet wellspring of confidence. The scroll is no longer in your hands. It has been accepted, absorbed into the machinery of the domain, but you can still feel its phantom weight, satisfying heft of accomplishment. How much personal pride and creative satisfaction a samurai could derive from a life of administrative labor, and whether it truly replaced the desire for martial glory is a question that lies at the heart of understanding the samurai's adaptation to peace. As you walk, you feel you have found an answer, at least for yourself. Your great-grandfather's honor was earned with the edge of his sword, measured in the enemies he defeated, in the battles he won. Your honor, you realize, was earned with the tip of your brush, measured in the clarity of your sentences and the soundness of your logic. You have not won a battle, but you have prevented 100 future arguments. You have not defeated an enemy, but you have defeated ambiguity. You have served your lord and brought order to a small corner of the world. This was the great unstated duty of the samurai in this era of peace, to prove your worth not through martial prowess, but through loyal, effective service. You have met this duty. You have proven your value. Tomorrow, you will return to the accounts office, a place of profound and unending boredom. But now, you will be a man with a secret. You are the author of the single most important document on bridge repair in the entire domain. The other clerks will not know they are in the presence of a bureaucratic legend. The thought makes you smile, a small, private upturning of your lips in the dark. You feel a sense of satisfaction so deep and profound it is almost exciting. Quickly suppress the excitement. It is an unseemly emotion for a samurai who has just completed a month-long project about infrastructure. Still, the feeling lingers. A warm coal glowing in your chest. As you leave the castle grounds and walk along the edge of the great moat, you look up at the night sky. The clouds have cleared, and a perfectly full, brilliant moon hangs in the darkness. Its light so bright it paints the surface of the water with a shimmering silver path. It is a night for Sakimi, for moon viewing, an occasion for poetry, for sake, for quiet contemplation of beauty. Normally, you would have noted it with a passing, detached appreciation. But tonight, you feel you have earned this beauty. Stop your walk. Stand by the water's edge and simply look at the moon. You permit yourself a moment of contemplation. The poetry and sake can wait. One must not get too carried away with personal fulfillment, but this moment of quiet, solitary appreciation feels like a just reward. The moon is silent, perfect, and orderly. It follows its celestial path without deviation. It is, you think, a model of good administration. You finally arrive home. You slide open the gate and enter your small, silent house. It is the same as always, a callback to the solitary life you have always led. But it does not feel empty tonight. It feels like a sanctuary, a well-deserved haven of peace, light. A single candle, its small flame pushing back the darkness. You change into your comfortable home kimono. You do not practice with your sword tonight. Your mind is already at peace in that state of calm, lingering awareness of Zanshin that the practice is meant to instill. Your work has given you the same gift. You sit for a moment and look at your swords, the Deishu, resting on their polished stand. They are a callback to your identity, but your relationship with them has changed. You no longer see them as symbols of a purpose you can never fulfill. Instead, you see them as symbols of an ideal of precision, of discipline, of the pursuit of perfection. You have not wielded them, but you have applied their spirit to your own work. You have used your mind as a blade, cutting through confusion to find clarity. You have honored their legacy in your own way. You feel a sense of harmony you have never felt before, a quiet click of a puzzle piece falling into place. You are a samurai. You are a scholar. You are a bureaucrat. And tonight, for the first time, all three feel like they are part of the same whole. The next morning, you wake. The light that filters through the paper screen is the same. The scent of the tatami mats is the same. The distant sounds of the city of Edo stirring to life are the same. You rise and perform your morning rituals, a callback to the very beginning of our story. You fold your futon, you wash your face with cold water, you dress in your formal kamishimo. The actions are identical, but you are not. The feeling of being a cog in a meaningless machine, of being a warrior with no war, has been replaced by a quiet sense of understanding. Your work, you now see, is not a punishment or a pale imitation of a glorious past. It is the very thing that preserves the world you inhabit. You are a servant of the Taihi, the Great Peace. This is the ultimate historical fact of your era. For more than a century, there have been no major wars on these islands. This peace was not an accident. It was a deliberate, monumental project of statecraft, built and maintained by the tireless, meticulous, and profoundly boring work of 100,000 men, just like you. The laws you uphold, the regulations you enforce, the taxes you audit, these are the invisible walls of the fortress of peace. They are stronger than any stone rampart. They have created a society so stable, so orderly, that a man can live his entire life without ever needing to draw his sword in anger. Your mundane job is your contribution to this grand project. It is your service, your giri, your honor. Before you leave, your eyes fall upon the single hanging scroll in the main room of your house. the only piece of decoration. It is a piece of calligraphy you have looked at every day of your life, a gift from your father. It contains a single, elegant character. Why? Harmony. Today, for the first time, you feel you truly understand its meaning. It is not a passive state, but an active creation. It is the result of balance, of each part of society fulfilling its function, of the careful, patient work of maintaining order. Your life, your work, is an expression of Yi. You walk to the castle. Your steps light. You pass the same walls, the same gates, but you see them now as parts of a coherent, meaningful whole. You return to the accounts office, the large, quiet room full of your colleagues. You are once again a simple clerk in this office. Your legendary status as the Lord of the Bridges will remain your own quiet, deeply satisfying secret. You kneel. At your desk, you bow to your supervisor, and you are handed a new ledger. It is a record of the soybean harvest from a village in the eastern provinces. You pick up your brush, grind your ink, and begin to work. The task is the same. The day will be the same. But it no longer feels like a burden. It feels like your place in the universe. It feels like peace. And so your day unfolds, a quiet stream of familiar actions. The soft scrape of the ink stick on the stone, the whisper of your brush on the paper, the silent click of the abacus beads. Let these sounds be a gentle rhythm to guide your own thoughts towards stillness. The world outside, with its noise and its haste, fades away, leaving only the tranquil, ordered world of this room. There are no great events here, no calls to action, no urgent demands. There is only the steady, patient application of skill, the quiet satisfaction of a task done well. Feel the tension in your own shoulders begin to soften, your mind letting go of its own ledgers and its own accounts. There is nothing for you to audit, nothing to resolve. Your only task is to listen, to drift, to follow the soft sounds into a place of deep and untroubled rest. The rain has stopped. The work is done, and the great, silent, honorable peace enfolds everything.